never doubted that equal rights was the right direction. Most problems, most reforms are complicated. But to me, there is nothing complicated about ordinary equality. This is a quote from Alice Paul, ushistory.org, last accessed March 13, 2012. Now this quote could easily be applied to the controversial topic of gay marriage. I did some research, and here's what I found out about marriage equality and why legalizing it just makes sense. I'm going to tell you about the problems the lack of marriage equality causes and tell you ways that it can actually be helpful. Now, when I started researching this topic, I didn't really know a lot about it. Actually, I didn't really know anything about it. So, the information that I did find out was very interesting, to say the least. Now, I tried to find the root behind the laws against marriage equality to find out why it was illegal, and I couldn't really find anything, and everything sort of turned up a dead end. And the things that I did find were completely insane, like a rise in bestiality supposedly caused by legalizing gay marriage, which I thought was completely ridiculous. I found a lot of articles about this on several .com websites, and even an article on the hrc.org, which was last accessed March 13, 2012. I also found religion to be a big factor in this debate, which I thought was really interesting, considering that we're supposed to be a country that was founded on religious freedom. I found this on heritage.org, last accessed March 12, 2012. I thought this was really interesting, considering, that we're supposed to be a country that was founded on religious freedom. We seem to want a separation of church and state, but only when it's convenient for us, and only sometimes. According to Cook, 1919, the U.S. Full Faith and Credit Clause provides that states must recognize legislative acts, public records, and judicial decisions of other states within the United States. However, there are some states that have legalized gay marriage, and yet those unions are not recognized in all states. Section 1 of the 14th Amendment states all men being created equal, and therefore should be provided with equal protection. I got this information from cornell.edu, last accessed March 13, 2012. Also, in the 14th Amendment, it states that no state shall make a law which shall abridge the privileges of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property. I think a big step in solving this problem is really informing people and getting the word out and just getting people involved. I think a great outlet for doing this would be going into local colleges. We could start here at home with our own, here at Highlands with our GBLT organization, and go in and maybe set up some workshops and just get information out. Now, before I did this, I had no idea that this violated my rights as an American. And our young people are tomorrow's leaders, and when they get passionate about something, they want to help. So you could go in and just encourage them to care, encourage them to vote. What else is the government trying to get away with violating that we don't even know about? And how about with all the debt that this country is in, why not consider that the rise in the economy that could be generated by gay marriage, instead of doing things like trying to cut the salary of our troops who sacrifice their lives for our country on a daily basis. It was estimated that legalizing same-sex marriage would add almost $150 million to New York City's economy and almost $200 million to the state of New York in just 3 years following legalization. I got this information from manhattancc.org, last accessed March 12, 2012. Also, it would force big businesses to spend more money on health care, since same-sex married couples would now be allowed to get on company plans and would be able to have the same benefits as other married couples. This could lower the number of people on Medicaid and other government assistance programs, therefore spending less taxpayer dollars, and that money could then therefore go to other things much needed. Not to mention all the money that would be generated from the weddings, because everybody knows that a wedding isn't cheap. According to Roch 2004, gay marriage is a win-win-win. Good for the gays, good for the straights, and good for America. So marriage equality really does make sense, especially if we believe our Constitution and everything that this country was founded on by our forefathers. And plus, the money that it would generate for our economy is greatly needed. Besides, love is love, like my button says. So I'm going to pass around this petition, and you guys can feel free to sign it if you want. And if you think you might need some more information, a great website to check out is the hrc.org. And I also have some buttons for y'all to remind you that everybody is equal and everybody deserves love, and love is love. Thanks.
Alexis Sky Pilkington, aka Lexi, born June 17, 1992, to Paula and Tom Pilkington, and to her older brother Jared. When she was growing up, she was always known as a very fearless individual, except for when it came to roller coasters, but she got over that fear at the age of 13. When she was younger, she tried out many different sports, ranging from lacrosse to volleyball to her sport of choice, soccer. And she even took that so far as to become an assistant referee and take the younger kids under her wing and show them that the game was about fun, not just about winning. But let's face it, everybody loves a victory. State championship match. It was the final match. And Lexi's team was going up against the team that they had lost against the previous year. And they were losing again. Lexi decided it was time for some motivational speaking. So she pulled the group in a huddle and told them something that none of them would ever forget. She said, we have to go back there onto that field, and we have to give everything but up. Needless to say, they went back on that field, and they won that match. Now, Lexi was a person that everybody loved having on their team. And everything seemed pretty good at this point, until harassing and degrading messages started coming to her Facebook, inbox, wall, and cell phone. And most people thought she was strong, that this wouldn't affect her. March 21st, 2010, Lexi took her own life due to cyberbullying. This is gathered from Alexis Pickleton Memorial Foundation.org, last access March 21st, 2012. Everybody knows bullying's serious. I don't have to stress that. But cyberbullying takes it to a whole new level. It makes it to where the bully can bully the victim anytime, any place. Cell phone, computer, the technology that we have these days is endless. And together we can fight to stop this. Today I'm going to tell you about some tactics we can use to prevent cyberbullying, how serious cyberbullying really is, and what's going to happen after we prevent cyberbullying. So, cyberbullying's been around for a good 10 to 15 years, but it's recently been big in the past few. If you Google the term bullying, you're going to get more results for cyberbullying than you will regular bullying, and that's pretty scary. I'm going to give you some statistics, and statistics are usually boring, but when I tell you these, I want you to picture your friends. I want you to picture your family, and I want you to picture even the people in this room. 1 out of every 3 people on social networking sites have been or are being bullied. Take 3 of your Facebook friends. 1 of them has a good chance of being bullied. Say you have hundreds of Facebook friends. What does that do to the number? It gets worse. 25% of all teens with a cell phone have had harassing text messages. I'm willing to bet most of y'all in here have a cell phone. If not, I know you know somebody that does. There's a 1 in 4 chance that that can affect them. Not so much boring statistics anymore, but now they're scared. But it goes to another level. 1/2 of everybody on social networking sites are bullies or have been bullies. That makes the bully to victim ratio horrifying. And what's worse is half of those victims never tell anyone. This information was gathered from bullyingstatistics.org, last access March 24, 2012. Now, how do we lower this percentage, you may ask? There's a few things that can be done, and the first one's pretty easy. Stop and think before we speak. Cliche, I know. But this prevents accidental bullying and name-calling. Let's say you call your friend a name. You're just joking around. Your friend knows it's a joke. Somebody else sees it. They might not know it's a joke. They'll tell somebody else. They might not know it's a joke, and you've created a web. And being the spider in this web is never a good thing. The second thing we can do is go to the higher authorities about it. You may ask, how are we supposed to do that? When you're on a social networking site, all of them that I've ever seen have a button you can click to report negative comments. You click that button, it goes to them, and they take it seriously. I know from personal experience. Most people think, this isn't my problem, why should I intervene? Because you could save a life. In Lexi's case, If some of her friends would have acted to that and not thought about that, maybe a life could have been saved. You never know, but why take the chance of somebody's life being lost? You have to step in, because half of these people are never going to tell anybody. And this is gathered from Al Force, published October 2010. Now, we're here in this world now as it is, and it's pretty corrupted. But we can make it a better place in some aspects, this being one of them. If we can prevent cyberbullying, it might not be as serious as Lexi's case, but deaths can be prevented from it. And if it's not death, then it's fear. What is a bully if it's not installing fear in somebody? Not a bully at all. So if we can show these people that they're not alone and stand beside them, show them they have nothing to fear, then they can sleep better at night. Because let's face it, some people don't sleep at night from the bullying comments that go on. Imagine not being able to sleep. So we need to band together, and we need to let them know that they can sleep at night. Which brings me to the next point. We have to let people know that they are never alone. You're never alone. And as a visual aid, I have these. You probably can't see it from here, but it's a person. Yeah, it's a paper person. But this stands for a lot more than what it is. This stands for the fact that you're never alone. I'm going to pass these out to the judges. And if anybody wants to find me afterwards, I'll give you one. If I don't have any more, I have paper, and I'll make you one on the spot. Well, today I've discussed how serious cyberbullying really is, things we can do to prevent cyberbullying, and what will happen after we prevent cyberbullying. It took me a second to think of a local solution, but I thought of one. I created a Facebook page, because what better to attack these bullies than on their own terms? On the back of every one of these dolls is the name of the Facebook group. Go home, add it, you will be accepted, and you can join in this fight to stop the cyberbullies. We have to band together. If we just sit back and let this happen, we're losing people. And we do not need to lose people, period. So we need to get together and we need to fight these cyberbullies. And remember, in that fight against these cyberbullies, give everything but up. Thank you.
Freedom of speech, the right to choose, even women's rights. These are all opportunities that living in this country has offered us. But what if you were a part of a culture that didn't provide any of these opportunities? What if you were a part of a culture that didn't give freedom of speech, that didn't give you the right to choose, and still mistreated women? Does a culture like that even exist? Now I'm sure some of you are sitting there thinking, yeah, sure it does. We see it on TV all the time. It's those crazy Middle Easterns that throw rocks and stuff and yell. What are they yelling? I don't know. Probably go make me a sandwich in Arabic or something. Over the past years, there's been this crazy depiction that Islam oppresses women. I can personally say Islam does not oppress women. Now I can stand here and provide ways and throw facts at you that proves this, but to be honest, I'd rather just give you my personal perspective of what being a Muslim woman is like. However, before I get into any of that, I feel I need to elaborate a little bit more on what it means to be a Muslim and its relations to Islam. Now, according to Oxford's American Immigration, published in 2001, the word Muslim means one who submits. Now, according to SeekersGuidance.org, March 20, 2012, the word Islam means submission to God, or in Arabic, Allah. So initially, someone who practices Islam is a Muslim. And if you're a Muslim, you're submitting yourself to God. Now, what that means exactly is, if God says don't drink alcohol, you say, okay, we won't drink alcohol. If God says a woman must cover up and just conservatively, okay, we'll cover up. God says don't eat pork, turkey bacon, awesome. But what does this mean exactly to a Muslim woman? Now, one of the main depictions that person has is the way a woman dresses. For some reason, the way a woman dresses discusses what they can do in life. Apparently, if you show more clothes, that means you're more free. If you show more skin, it means you're more free. And if you show less skin, it means you're limited to everything else in life. Now, I'm not so sure about that, but I can tell you why a Muslim woman is required to dress conservatively. One example I can give you is myself. Now, as you can see, I'm not showing that much skin, but I think the main thing that stands out is my head wrapping. Well, this is there's many names for this. You can call it a veil, you can call it a head wrap if you wish. The most common name for it is a hijab, and its purpose is to cover my hair. Now, the only reason why women in Islam have to cover up is for preservation only. Let's face it. Doesn't matter what culture you're in, women are just drop dead gorgeous. It's no wonder why someone likes to cover it up. Now I have some more examples that I pulled up from IslamicFinder.org, March 20, 2012, that I'd like to show you. I don't know if you can all see it, but this is called a hijab. It looks like a jacket, it's very long, and it covers a woman's whole body. This hides the shape a little bit more. Second one is a burqa. I know this seems very common that you see Muslim women wearing, however, it is the least common that you will ever find any woman practicing Islam to wear. It's a burqa. This also covers the body, but in addition, it covers the face as well. This is not a burqa. This is a ninja. Very similar to a burqa, but so not a burqa. Now, another depiction that people have against women is they say that they're forced into marriage and they become a slave of their home. This is not true. In Islam, for both men and women, you are allowed to choose anyone that you want to marry. Now, as far as being a slave to your own home and mistreating a woman, that is also not true. In fact, Islam discusses equality for both men and women, and it also states that a man must treat his wife like a queen. That's right, you make me a sandwich. Now, a third depiction that I usually face is unequal education rights. People tend to think that women are not allowed to learn in my culture. Why? I have no idea. Education is highly important in Islam, and it's been there since the beginning. Let's face it, Arabs created algebra. Come on, seriously, guys. Also, however, the reason why education is highly important, because without it, how are we going to educate our kids? So education is definitely a very important quality for anyone that practices Islam to have. Now, I've given you some examples of depictions that people face, but where are these depictions coming from? Where are we getting it? One of the main, if not the biggest source that we get these depictions is media. Now, media has this bad tendency of wanting to make everything action-packed and entertaining for everyone, and unfortunately, they lose sight of what's actually going on. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought it was Hollywood's job to entertain me and give me stuff like that. Media is supposed to inform me. What can they do to improve this? Well, how about bringing both sides of the story? There's two sides to every story. Why just focus on one negative aspect, and it's always a negative aspect, and just talk about that? Why not mention everything that's going on? Now, another source where you can get these depictions are schools. Now, I'm not saying schools ever say anything negatively, but perhaps schools can elaborate more on Islam and what it does. I mean, English professors teach it all the time. They're always saying, oh, know your secondary sources and know your primary sources, where you get your information. Why not apply that to life? And why not know who, the what's, the where's, and when's of where you're getting your information? And that is the key thing, which brings me to you as individuals. What is your role in all this, and what can you do? Now, I want you to think about all the friends that you hang around with, and how many of them are diverse, and how much you actually know about them. Now, we live in a country that embraces itself as the land of the free and welcomes all, and that it is. However, no one embraces this fact. Everyone sticks to their own cliques and hangs around with their own people, and they're afraid to ask questions. There's absolutely nothing wrong with asking questions. I get asked questions all the time, and I honestly have no problem with it. If I got offended, I think that would be wrong on my part, because you only want to know. So, with that said, now I've given you reasons of what the depictions are and where they're coming from, and what you can also do. Now, if you're still hesitant in believing, well, Islam, I still think it oppresses women, well, what about me? I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm going against everything that these depictions are standing for me. I'm practicing my religion, I'm clearly getting my education, and I'm pretty sure my voice is being heard right about now. My name is Amira, and I'm a woman of Islam, and Islam does not oppress me. Thank you.
Sexually explicit content, offensive language, and content unsuited to age group. These three things are, according to a study published in 2008 by the American Library Association, Book Challenges, were the top 3 reasons for requests for books to be banned in the United States between the years 1990 and 2008. Now, the age group that people that are making these requests for books to be banned, the age group that they're worried about are teenagers and young adults, high school age, and then our age, 18, 19, 20. Maybe it's just me, but when I was in high school and when I was 18, 19, 20, I was coming into contact with sexually explicit content, offensive language, and stuff that wasn't suited to my age group every day. It was a part of everyday life. And these are the reasons that people want books to be banned, so I don't really understand why those are the top 3 reasons, to be honest with you. I don't think books should be banned, and I think this is an important issue because it deals with censorship not only of artistic works, but of educational and informative works as well. So books should not be banned because it's a violation of constitutional right. It prevents developing minds from forming their own opinions on sensitive issues, touchy issues, through the safe medium of literature and experiencing them through a character's eyes. And also there are alternate ways that parents can keep material that they find unsuitable out of their children's hands. Now, in a lot of other countries, book banning and censorship happens all the time. It's usually for religious reasons or political reasons, people challenging the government or stating religious beliefs that conflict that of the general population in that area. But we can't let that happen here in America because it's America. We're proponents of liberty. We are all about freedom. We don't need censorship. And also, it prevents responsible adult minds, such as mine and many of yours, from accessing books as a healthy form of entertainment and learning. Now, a lot of parents don't want their kids to be exposed to certain material, and I understand that. If a child is a minor, then their actions, what they do, their parents are responsible for that. So it's well within the parents' rights to want to limit what their child comes into contact with. I can understand that, but it doesn't give them the right to limit everyone else's access to those materials. Now, there's an author, Ellen Hopkins, who wrote a book called Crank, and she wrote an essay on censorship this year in 2012. And in that essay, she says, if you don't like content in a book, don't read it. If you don't want your child to read a book, take it away, but you do not have the right to decide appropriateness for everyone. Now, Ellen Hopkins, she wrote this book, Crank, and it's about methamphetamine addiction. She witnessed her daughter go through what she calls the hell of meth addiction. So she wrote this book about it, probably to help herself cope a little bit, maybe to help her daughter, but also to get it out there for other young people who may be experiencing the same kind of difficulties in their daily lives. And Ellen Hopkins, she's been disinvited from several speaking engagements. She's had requests for her books to be taken off many shelves, all because of the sensitive nature of the material. But she tells a story in this essay about one speaking engagement that she was not disinvited from. And she tells the story, she did her whole spiel and talked to everybody, and then people came up and wanted autographs and answered questions and stuff like that. But she talks about a young girl who was just kind of hanging around after everything was done, and she was waiting on everybody to get out. And when the room cleared, she came up to Ellen Hopkins and she said, "Thank you for saving my life." She credits Ellen Hopkins for saving her life because she read her book. She saw herself experiencing, she was in the same place that the character in the book was in, Ellen Hopkins' daughter, and she saw it for what it was and decided to change it. Now, I don't know where she got the book from, but imagine if that place, library or bookstore, hadn't had that book there. Imagine where this little girl would be. She might have continued down that path. So it's a very important issue. Now, what can be done about it? Specifically, what can government do about it? Well, there's a school in Nebraska where they've tried to propose a reasonable solution to this issue. They have a section in the back of their library where they have materials with sensitive issues covered in them and things that parents might not want in their kids' hands, and they keep them in that back room, and kids aren't allowed to go in there on their own. They have to either be with a parent or have a permission slip. So I think this is a reasonable solution. It doesn't just take away the children's access to the books, but they have to have the parents' permission to get it. I don't see why this couldn't be implemented anywhere else in the nation. So if we don't do something about this, if we do let book censorship and book banning happen in our country, to me, it just kind of begs the question, where does it stop? We have so much complaints about big government being too involved in our lives. If we start letting them censor our literature, where does it stop? How far will they go with it? So, what can you do on a local level? Well, I've said already that book banning and censorship is not only a violation of constitutional rights, but it also limits the learning abilities of teenagers and young adults, and there are other solutions to the problems. So, I have a list here that I took from an article by Ellen Merkelson published in 2010 called Books Behind Bars. And I would give one to all y'all, but there's too many of you. And I only have two, so judges, you'll have to share. But these are books that have been banned in other countries, and I would encourage each and every one of you to maybe check out some of these books, read them for yourself, read through it, and see these people that are screaming, ban this book, censor this book, did they really read the material, or were they just skimming through and looking for words and phrases that they didn't like? Make the decision on your own, read the books, and also please continue to support your favorite authors and your local libraries.
I pledge allegiance to my flag, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. I'm sure you've all had to say that growing up, but wait, did I forget something? I left out under God. Why? Well, that's because how it was originally written in 1892. I'm going to talk to you about separation of church and state and why it's a good thing. The facts that I'm going to tell you are exactly that. They're facts. They come from the books and documents that our country was founded on. Most of my sources are rationalrevolution.net, theocracywatch.org, and wallbuilders.com. I'm going to go through three main points. Why the founding fathers wanted a separation of church and states, the uses of God in government, and how religion is not an American tradition. The relationship between organized religion and nation state is becoming one and the same. That's a big problem because elected officials who use religion as a source for how the government should be run do not deserve to have the government's power. So, I'm not here, first and foremost, I'm not here to demoralize anyone's beliefs or anything like that. I'm just trying to state that religion belongs in society, not in government. So just make that clear. So let me begin with a short little history lesson. Does anyone know who founded America more than any other person? Anybody?
Thomas Paine.
Yes, he was in there, so he knows the answer. Well, Thomas Paine, in his book of Age of Reason, stated, all religion is corrupt, and his own mind is his own church. Now, he didn't sign the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution, so a lot of people don't really, he kind of got shafted in the whole that thing. But the idea of separate church and state was already there. That brings me to the Constitution and Declaration of Independence. In both documents, there's no reference to God, Jesus, or Christianity. The Declaration of Independence clearly asserts earthly authority, and the First Amendment of the Constitution states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or publicizing the free exercise thereof. Thomas Jefferson even said that the purpose of this First Amendment was to have a law of separation of church and state, so to protect the rights of individuals. And as quoted by Thomas Jefferson himself, this is my best impersonation of Thomas Jefferson, state churches that use government power to support themselves and force their views on persons of other faiths undermine all our civil rights. Prior to the Constitution, there were many state laws that required people to believe in God to even hold public offices, such as Carolina's 1776 Constitution. This is verbatim, I'm not making this up. No person who shall deny the being of God or the truth of the Protestant religion or the divine authority, either Old or New Testament, shall hold religious principles with the freedom and safety of the state, shall be capable of holding my office or place of trust or profit in the civil department within the state. That does not sound like the land of free to me. Sorry, people. Now back to the Pledge of Allegiance, among other things, my second point. The Pledge of Allegiance is only 112 years old. Half of its existence didn't even have under God in it. And the country went 100 years without any pledge at all. So people who's like senators and judges and even the president said, under God belongs in the Pledge of Allegiance because in God we trust is on our currency and God reference in federal oaths. Well, they probably should have checked their facts because prior to the Federal Reserve in 1913, states and private banks were printing money with, guess what, nothing to do with God. And the national motto, which was E pluribus unum, which means out of many one, to In God We Trust, which happened in 1957. That's pretty recent. And as far as the federal oath, there's no source that George Washington added, so help me God, when you swear in the Bible. It wasn't even his idea. He was in New York when he was doing it, and it was required by state law. Someone actually had to go in the courtroom and just find a Bible for him to swear on. So that's where that started from. And as far as government being American religion, some Americans like to claim America is a Christian nation founded on Christianity. Wrong. Has anyone heard of the Treaty of Chipotle? Anybody? Not Treaty of Chipotle like the burritos. Sounds similar. But it was written near the end of George Washington's presidency, signed by John Adams, might know him as our second president of the United States. Article 2 of this says, government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion, no pretext arising from religious opinions shall ever produce an interruption of the harmony existing between the two countries. I don't know how much clearer you can get that it was not founded on Christianity. It's there in plain view. And then as far as Americans saying, no, we shouldn't change any of this, it's American tradition. No, it's not. Religion being referenced in federal government has only been happening in the past 50 years. The founding fathers warned about this. So what do? We take a stand, take this to a national level. It deserves debate where both sides are heard equally, not just, yes, we want this, and then kind of, hear that side. Just not fair, So I talked to you about how the founding fathers wanted a separation of church and state, the uses of God in government, and finally how religion is not an American tradition. So the separation of church and state is not meant to hinder religion or deny its role in society or history. It's just meant to keep religion in society and out of government. The government's sole role is to administer earthly matters, not one from a higher being. Thank you.